Hey guys, today's project is I'm going to start working on moving this old potting shed. Now the structure is fine, it's in decent enough shape, it's just in the wrong place in the yard for what I want to do with it. So I need to start working on getting the floor up and see what's underneath it to see if it's going to be easy to move or not. Now it could have been built on some skids, which would make it really easy to just jack it up out of the dirt and then drag it. But I'm guessing it was probably actually just set here on the ground and it's slowly sunk into the dirt, and then the base layer of it is actually probably rotten by now. So dig up the floor, figure out what we're working with, and figure out our next steps. Well, it looks like we have a decent floor on top of a rotten, ant-covered plywood subfloor. So far, I have not found any sign of structure below that. Gotta watch out for loose screws now. That would be a very unpleasant thing to step on if that was pointed up when I'm walking around here. So as I'm pulling up these floorboards, they're really not rotten. It's the subfloor, it's the plywood below it that's rotten, and the screws are pulling right through. So that tells me that maybe it didn't sink down into the dirt and get quite so destroyed as I was afraid of. Alright, well, I dug through the floor, the subfloor, and I'm down to bare dirt, and there's nothing of any sort of structure left here. At one point there was some kind of a skid or a runner that was running front to back on this thing, but they have completely rotted out. So that's kind of what I expected. I think to lift this thing up and move it, I'm actually just going to dig a hole under each corner and put a bottle jack underneath it and lift it up so that I can get skids underneath it. But before I do that, I'm a little worried about doing that will actually destroy the shape of this thing. It might just rip it apart at the joints because there's no structure really to it to hold it together. When it's, got the runners on the ground or, sitting on the ground, it's in pretty good structural shape. But when I lift it up, there's nothing holding it together except the roof. That back wall is kind of doing some work, but mostly this shape is going to want to do this. The walls are going to want to bend out at the bottom once I start putting some torque in different directions on this. So I think I'm going to go grab some 2x4s and start screwing them from wall to wall, 2 or 3 or 4 across the length of this thing to try to give it some more structural rigidity and hold it together before I try to lift it up. So now I have holes dug through in all 4 corners, and I'm not sure that going all the way through is really that critical. It's probably just going to make it easier for me to maneuver the jack around down in that space. But now I'm going to take my cross members and screw them in this direction. We're going to do one on each end and one in the middle and try to give this thing a little bit of strength. Okay, so we've got the braces across the front, middle, and back of this whole thing, and then I've got a floor jack and a bottle jack in the outside corners, and with the help of my assistant there, we are going to try to lift both corners at the same time, and that should cause this whole hut to pivot on this back corner and lift this side up so I can put blocks under it. And then I can do the same thing to this side, and then I can put 2x4s underneath the whole thing to create some skids. So,
Skids.
My helper back there is going to push on the floor jack when I'm ready.
Mine's totally lifting.
Is it?
Uh-huh. I can see it lifting.
Mine is not doing anything.
I think the floor jack is better.
It seems to be. Hey, I finally got mine to spin. Yeah, just keep going, man. I have to catch up. I'm slower than you.
Mine is done.
Is it?
Yep.
Flint is trying to stick his face in the crack that we're revealing here, and if this thing shifts off the jacks, it would crush his face. So if I yell curtly at my handsome dog, it's for his own safety. So, what's going on? We lifted it up once already, right? Mm-hmm. So we got it high enough to shove these 2x4s.
Yep.
Just stuck in under the wall a little ways because we ran out of height on our jacks, so that gave us enough room to put some kind of piece of junk underneath them and lift the jacks up a little higher in the hole. And now we can lift the whole wall up a little further. And hopefully that does the trick. Yep. Okay, we've got this side of the shed jacked up, ready to go. We've got some supports under it to keep it from tipping over. I'm going to take what I'm going to end up using as the skids and slide them in from this side as far as I can get them, so that once we get the other side up, we can just kind of poke them through and they'll be good to go. And that'll kind of help make this side safer too while we're jacking things around.
Jackie.
Jackie. Well, I found a little hitch in our plan.
Yep.
I knew that this tree was close, but I didn't think it was going to make much of a difference. But right here you can see that it's already touching from the little bit we've jacked up on the other side. So I can't just lift this side up or it's going to keep crushing into that tree. Now fortunately it looks like it's only touching this dead stump. Now this whole tree is destined to come down anyway, but I was hoping I could get the building out before I had to do that. I still think that I can just kind of chop on that one little branch over there with the chainsaw and maybe get away with this, because as we lift this up, it's going to lift up and out. So hopefully this works. Well, it's not pretty. Normally that would be a pretty ugly gash on that tree. But since the tree is coming down anyway, I'm not too worried about it. And it definitely gives me enough room to jack this side of the building up now without hitting it. Alright guys, it's day 2 of this little project. I've got all the skids in place. I've got everything screwed together really tight, and it's structurally, I think it's pretty good. The sun went down on me before I could actually start dragging this thing out of here, but that's okay because it's actually cool this morning and the ground is more frozen. I don't know if you saw in the video or not how caked with mud my boots were by the end of the day yesterday. Well, this morning the ground's too frozen for that to happen, so that's going to help this thing slide over the ground instead of just sort of sinking in as I'm dragging it. So, sun's coming up. Let's get the tractor hooked up and let's start dragging this thing and hope it works. So I've got this 2x4 screwed into all of the skids, and hopefully I can come up here with the bucket of the tractor, wrap a chain around it, and lift this whole side at once, and then just start dragging in. It'll pivot on the skids on the back. Now, strength-wise, I know that this would be stronger if the 2x4 was underneath these 2x4s instead of on top of it, but that's a chance I'm willing to take. If this doesn't look like it's going to work, I'll set it back down on something taller so that I can come back and screw the board back in from the bottom. But as it is, I just have to use it this way, hoping that the power of 8 screws is strong enough to hold it while I lift this side up. Flint is still in here trying to find the mice that he is convinced still live in this house. What do you think? Did you get them? Did you get them? Where? Oh, goodness. So, this is what it looks like. Let's go bring the tractor around. it's time for a situation update right now. We've got this thing moved from all the way across the yard back here to where it's about going to go. I want to drag it straight back this way now, up onto this concrete slab behind the lumber shed. But I have to change the direction of the skids to do that, because if I started just pulling it back right now, every one of those would just snap off. So what I'm going to have to do is lift this up and put skids under it going front to back on this hut now. I've already done it on the far side. To do it on this side, I'm going to go put the forks on the tractor and try to just lift this up high enough that I can get away with doing it that way without getting jacks and blocks and stuff. The reason I didn't do the forks on the tractor from the start to dig it out of its original place is the forks I have aren't exactly strong. They're not meant to lift a lot of weight, and the way it was sunk in the mud, I was afraid it would just bend the forks right off the bucket and give me more problems to deal with. So here, I've got kind of a controlled situation. I can slide the forks underneath it, hopefully lift this up enough just to slide a 2x4 underneath it. That should be enough to let this thing skid back, straight back that way onto this concrete slab. Well, that's as good a finale as any. I've got it up here on this slab where it's not going to sink into the ground ever again, but it needs some work done around the base of it. I need to clean it up. Obviously, it's going to need a door and better windows, but I don't even know what's going in here yet. I just needed it out of the spot that it was, and I'm going to leave it just like this for now until I figure out what to do with it, because it's out of the way, it's up off the ground, it's easy to get back to work on when I need to. So, thanks for watching, guys. I'm pretty sure I was standing off a frame for that last little conclusion, but the audio should be good, and I'm not doing it again. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.